The winter of 1897 was particularly harsh in Greenbrier County, West Virginia. The cold was relentless, and the snow seemed to fall endlessly, covering everything in a thick, white blanket. The wind howled through the trees, creating an eerie, almost haunting atmosphere. Snow blanketed the mountains, and a chilling silence hung in the air. The once vibrant forests were now silent, their beauty hidden beneath layers of snow and ice. The entire county seemed to be in a state of frozen stillness, as if time itself had stopped. It was in this setting, on a cold January day, that Zona Heaster Shue, a young woman in her early 20s, was found dead in her home. Her lifeless body lay at the foot of the stairs, a tragic end to a life that had barely begun. The news of her passing spread like wildfire through the small community. In a place where everyone knew each other, the death of a young woman was a shock that reverberated through every household. People were shocked and saddened. Zona was not just any young woman. She was a beloved member of their tight-knit community. Her sudden death left a void that was felt by all. Zona was a beloved member of their tight-knit community. She was known for her warm smile and kind heart, always willing to lend a helping hand to those in need. Her presence had brought joy to many, and her absence was deeply felt. Zona's body was discovered by a young boy, Andy, who had been sent to the Shue residence on an errand. Andy was a familiar face in the community, often running errands for various households. He knocked on the door, but there was no answer. The house was eerily quiet, and a sense of unease began to creep over him. He peered through the window and saw Zona lying at the foot of the stairs, her body still and lifeless. The sight was so shocking that it took him a moment to process what he was seeing. Terrified, he ran back to town and told everyone what he had seen. His frantic cries for help echoed through the streets, drawing the attention of everyone he passed. Panic swept through the town as people rushed to the Shue home. The news of Zona's death had spread quickly, and soon a crowd had gathered outside her house. They found Zona lying exactly as Andy had described. Her body was cold, her eyes staring blankly ahead. The scene was one of utter devastation. Her body was cold, her eyes staring blankly ahead. The once lively and vibrant young woman was now a lifeless figure, a stark reminder of the fragility of life.
The local doctor, George W. Knapp, was summoned to the scene. Dr. Knapp was a well-respected figure in the community, known for his dedication and expertise. He examined Zona's body but couldn't pinpoint the cause of death. Despite his best efforts, the exact reason for her sudden demise remained a mystery. He concluded that she had died of everlasting faint brought on by pregnancy. It was a diagnosis that left many puzzled, as Zona had shown no signs of being unwell.
However, whispers of something more sinister began to circulate. The circumstances surrounding Zona's death were just too strange, too sudden to ignore. The circumstances surrounding Zona's death were just too strange, too sudden to ignore. People began to question the official explanation, wondering if there was more to the story than met the eye. Little did they know, a tale of love, betrayal, and ghostly intervention was about to unfold. The mystery of Zona Heaster Shue was far from over, and the truth would soon come to light in the most unexpected way. This was only the beginning of the mystery of Zona Heaster Shue, a mystery that would soon reach beyond the grave. The story of her life and death would become a legend, a chilling reminder of the secrets that can lie hidden beneath the surface. Mary Jane Heaster, Zona's mother, was devastated by her daughter's sudden death. The news had come as a shock, a bolt from the blue that shattered her world. Zona was young, vibrant, and full of life. How could she be gone so suddenly? She refused to believe that Zona had died of natural causes. The official explanation was that Zona had succumbed to everlasting faint, a vague term that did little to explain the suddenness of her passing. Mary Jane knew in her heart that something was wrong. She had always been intuitive, and this time, her instincts screamed that there was more to the story. She couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister had happened to her daughter. The circumstances surrounding Zona's death were too suspicious, too convenient for her to accept at face value. As Mary Jane grieved, something extraordinary happened. In the quiet, lonely hours of the night, when the world was asleep, she began to experience something otherworldly. Zona's spirit began to visit her in her dreams. these were not ordinary dreams. They were vivid, almost tangible experiences that left Mary Jane shaken to her core. Night after night, Zona's ghost appeared at the foot of Mary Jane's bed. Her presence was undeniable, her form as clear as if she were still alive. Her spectral form was as real as if she were alive, her eyes filled with a sorrowful plea for justice. It was as if she was reaching out from beyond the grave, desperate to communicate the truth.
In these chilling nocturnal visits, Zona revealed the horrifying truth about her untimely demise. She spoke in a voice that was both familiar and eerie, recounting the events that led to her death. She told her mother that her husband, Edward Shue, had flown into a jealous rage. His temper had always been volatile, but that night it had reached a terrifying peak. He had accused her of infidelity and in a fit of anger snapped her neck. The violence of the act was shocking, a brutal end to a young life.
Mary Jane listened in horror as her daughter's spirit described how Edward had brutally taken her life. The details were so vivid, so precise, that it was impossible to dismiss them as mere dreams. Zona's ghost showed Mary Jane the marks on her neck, invisible to the human eye, the chilling evidence of Edward Shue's crime. These marks were a silent testimony to the violence she had endured. The chilling evidence of Edward Shue's crime was now clear. Mary Jane could see the ghostly handprints, the bruises that no one else could see. Mary Jane awoke each morning with a shudder, her nightgown damp with cold sweat, her heart heavy with the knowledge of her daughter's tragic fate. The dreams left her feeling drained, yet resolute. The dreams were so vivid, so real, that Mary Jane couldn't ignore them. They were more than just figments of her imagination. They were a call to action. She knew she had to do something. The truth could not remain buried, and Zona's spirit would not rest until justice was served. She had to find a way to prove that Edward Shue was a murderer. With a heavy heart but a determined spirit, Mary Jane began to gather evidence, seeking out anyone who might help her uncover the truth. Edward Shue was a tall, imposing man with a brooding demeanor. His presence alone could command a room, and his piercing eyes seemed to look right through you, leaving an indelible impression on anyone who met him. He had recently moved to Greenbrier County and had swept Zona off her feet with his charm. His arrival in the small, tight-knit community was like a whirlwind, and Zona, a young and impressionable woman, was instantly captivated by his charisma and confidence. They were married just a few months before her untimely death. The wedding was a modest affair, attended by close friends and family, who, despite their reservations, hoped for Zona's happiness. However, behind Edward's charming facade lurked a dark past. His enigmatic nature and the occasional glimpses of a more sinister side left many feeling uneasy. Rumors about his violent temper and troubled history had circulated even before he arrived in their peaceful town. Whispers of his past misdeeds spread like wildfire, and the townsfolk couldn't help but speculate about the true nature of the man who had so quickly won Zona's heart. Some whispered that Edward had left a trail of broken hearts and shattered lives in his wake. Women who had once been enamored with him were now left with nothing but heartache and regret. Others spoke of a darkness in his eyes, a hint of something sinister that sent chills down their spines. It was as if he carried a shadow with him, a darkness that could not be easily dispelled. Edward had a history of violence against women. His temper was notorious, and those who had witnessed it firsthand were left with a sense of dread. Before coming to Greenbrier County, he had been married twice. Both marriages had ended in tragedy, with his wives meeting untimely and mysterious deaths. Both of his previous wives had died under mysterious circumstances. The townsfolk couldn't ignore the eerie pattern, and many began to suspect that Edward's charm was nothing more than a facade to hide his true nature.
Despite these unsettling rumors, Zona was smitten with Edward. She saw him as her knight in shining armor, a man who could provide her with the love and security she had always dreamed of. She saw only the good in him, the love and affection he showered upon her. Edward's gestures of kindness and his seemingly genuine affection blinded her to the warnings and concerns of those around her. Blinded by love, she dismissed the warnings from her friends and family. They had seen the red flags, the signs that something was amiss, but Zona's heart was set on Edward. They had urged her to be cautious, to see Edward for who he truly was. Her family in particular had tried to reason with her, hoping to protect her from potential harm. But Zona, deeply in love, refused to listen. She believed that Edward was her soulmate, and nothing anyone said could change her mind.
Now, with Zona lying cold in her grave, the townsfolk couldn't shake the feeling that Edward's past had finally caught up with him. The once vibrant and hopeful young woman was now a tragic figure, and the community was left to grapple with the possibility that they had harbored a monster in their midst. They suspected that he had committed the ultimate betrayal, taking the life of the woman who had given him her heart. The whispers grew louder, and the sense of unease permeated the town as they sought justice for Zona and answers to the dark mystery that surrounded Edward Shue. Armed with the chilling truth revealed by Zona's ghost, Mary Jane Heaster embarked on a relentless pursuit of justice. She went from neighbor to neighbor, recounting the details of Zona's ghostly visits and the horrifying accusations against Edward Shue. At first, people were hesitant to believe her. They dismissed her claims as the ramblings of a grieving mother.
However, Mary Jane refused to be silenced. She was determined to expose Edward for the monster he truly was. Her grief fueled her determination, and she refused to let the whispers and doubts deter her.
Mary Jane took her plea to John Alfred Preston, the local prosecutor. She poured her heart out to him, describing the ghostly visits from Zona and the chilling details of her murder.
To everyone's surprise, Prosecutor Preston listened intently. He had known Mary Jane for many years and recognized the genuine terror and determination in her eyes. He couldn't dismiss her claims, especially considering the strange circumstances surrounding Zona's death. He agreed to look into the case further.